Ready? Okay. This Torah portion is it's called Revisiting Bechukotai. Now we talked about Bechukotai a few weeks back, but since we talked about the Torah portion of Behar last week, Bechukotai and Behar usually go together. So we're revisiting it to kind of strengthen the idea that we had in Behar, and it'll also strengthen some of the concepts that we've been considering in Joel as well. But let's talk to our Elohim, and then we'll take a look at this lesson. As I was doing this lesson, I thought that if I were to pass away today and never teach anything else, this would have been the most important thing that I could teach you. So this is a very important lesson. But let's talk to our Elohim, and then we'll take a look. Master Yahuwah, we thank you for this time to study your word, to spend in fellowship. We ask tonight that you will open our eyes, open our ears, and open our hearts so that we can see, hear, and understand, absorb what your word tells us and what your spirit has to tell us. And we thank you for it all in the name of Yahshua. Amen. All right. So revisiting Bechukotai. Now, we considered this verse several weeks ago. The Parsha Behar, like I said, is often considered with this Parsha Bechukotai in mind. The Parsha Behar, we considered our need to recognize and keep Torah even while we're amongst the thorns and the thistles. And these thorns and the thistles are our own opinions, our own perceptions. Nowadays, when we read Scripture, we take it topically. This is a story, it's history, and we miss everything that our Elohim is trying to tell us. So we have to pay attention to the instruction of Elohim. But this study shows us just how important our relationship to the Torah of Yahuwah is. So much that we must strive to make it part of our being, which takes us beyond only studying it. There is a saying that it's in the Ethics of the Fathers. It's called the Pirkei Avot. Rabbi Ishmael said that a person who studies Torah to teach will be blessed in that he is able to teach Torah. But a person who studies Torah in order to put it to use will be blessed in that he'll be able to study, teach, and do the Torah. So there is our choice. Now, when we took a look at Parsha Bechukotai last time, try saying that real fast 5 times. Bechukotai. We considered a statement from the first 3 words of the Parsha, which says, "If you walk in my statutes." And the last time we talked about it, we formulated an idea that it is our choice as to whether we live according to the rules and regulations prescribed to us by Yahuwah Elohim, and is our choice as to whether or not we make them our way of life. It is our choice whether or not we believe that Yahshua redeemed us and restored us back to a relationship with Yahuwah Elohim, making us again children in his house. So we then recap the 10 Commandments in our study of Behar. So we're going to take a look at Vayikra 26:3 from a different perspective than we did from our last study. And in this study, we're going to receive the tools that we need to actually engrave the Torah into our hearts. That's a very important concept. We have to engrave it into us. It has to be part of our being. So again, Vayikra 26:3. If you walk in my statutes and keep my commandments and do them, Then he goes on to say that you will get the latter rain and the former rain, and everything will be just peachy for you. And Bechukotai gives us a listing of blessings, and then it gives us a listing of curses. And so it's a very good Torah portion, but we're going to consider this verse. Now, we considered the word im as a choice in our last look of Bechukotai, to keep the commandments or not. In this study, we're going to focus on the word Bechukotai, that means statutes. Now, we learned the definition of a statute to be a written rule or a regulation. With this in mind, we consider the root origin for Bechukotai, which is hakak, that means to carve something into something or to engrave it into something. Hok is another root of this word Bechukotai, hok, that simply means that you're not comfortable doing something. And there are things in the Torah that take us out of our comfort zone. We have really, really ridiculous commandments that don't make any sense to us. Why are they there? To see if we will be obedient in keeping these things. Don't eat the BLT or the pulled pork sandwich. Don't mix your wool clothes with your linen clothes. Doesn't make any sense, but they're there. Now, if we break these down into itty-bitty little pieces, they're going to make a lot of sense, but on the outside, they don't make sense. But we do it on the external side to exercise our physical resolve to be in a relationship with Yahu Elohim. So, but this is hakak, means to carve or to engrave. Before we consider this any further, let's consider the first offering that Noah offered up to Yahuwah after disembarking from the ark, and what Yahuwah said in Bereshit 8. And Yahuwah smelled the sweet savor, and this is 8:21 in Bereshit. Yahuwah smelled the sweet savor, and Yahuwah said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for the Adam's sake. For the imagination of the Adam's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more everything living as I have done. Now, I took man out, and I put what the Torah says back into it, the Adam, because this pertains to men and women. Okay? It's very important. We are all in the same boat here. We all have the responsibility, regardless of what gender we might be. Then it says, while the earth remains, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. So, we would think that the heart of the Adam to be restored to a goodly state after being in the ark for 150 days. It wasn't just 40 days and 40 nights. They had to wait for everything to dry up. So we would think that all this time and being on 3 levels and learning how to take care of the clean and the unclean animals, and that it would have restored humankind's heart. But if we note that it was still considered to be evil from its youth, this is after Noah got off the ark, after he offered up the sacrifice. Elohim said he's still evil from his youth. Regardless of that, we read that life was to continue, because the next verse it says, life's going to go on. I'm not going to end it again. And in that verse, kind of hidden in there, that Yahuwah said in his heart, that he spoke into his Torah, he spoke in his word. This is a type of Yahshua, that little bitty, teeny, tiny phrase there. He spoke in his word that I won't do it again. I'm making a means to redeem them this time. But anyway, we consider Bereshit 6, 5, and 6 to look at what the condition of humankind was before the flood. And this is Bereshit 6, 5. And Yahuwah saw that the wickedness of the Adam was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of the heart was only evil continually. And it repented Yahuwah that he had made the Adam on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. grieved him at his heart. There's that word heart again. Take the last letter of the Torah is Lamed. The first letter is Beit. You put them together, they spell Leb. That they spell the word for heart. The Torah is his heart. But it grieved him that humankind couldn't follow simple directions of eat from the tree of life, don't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, name the animals, and trim the trees. How hard was that? So, but it grieved him at his heart. So, what we find in this comparison is that regardless of the learning and studying that we do, it's simply not enough to change the evil, or the state of evil or wickedness in our hearts. The question is here, how do I change this myself? Now we have in fact, I was at Half Price Books buying books with a tremendously wonderful gift that I thank you all from the very bottom of my heart. And a guy was ministering to two ladies in the Christian book section, says, are y'all saved by Jesus? And the Christian mentality here is that we are saved by faith or grace. This is a myth. We are required to act. The word keep Torah is shamar. It means to protect it, to treasure it. It's a lot more than simply to guard it. It's a lot more than simply just, well, I can discard it. And again, I know this is a study that was very close to my heart, so you have to forgive me if I get a little emotional. But we read in Romans, and King Jimmy just butchered that, Romans, where he says in King James, Christ is the end of the law to righteousness for those who believe. It's the end. What? Oh, we don't have to keep Torah because it says this in Romans. Whereas in the Hebrew and the Aramaic, it says, Hamashiach, the anointing of Yahuwah, is the goal of the Torah to righteousness for them who believe. It's a big difference. Thank you, Marcion, for changing things a little bit for us. So, it's not enough just to study. How do I change the condition of my heart? So, the blood that Yahshua shed at the Tav opened the door to the realm of Yahweh Elohim so that our actions would be accepted. He opened the door so that we could make teshuvah. So that we could say, I have made a mistake. Forgive me. I am going to work on reversing that and walking the way I need to walk. So, Yahshua made it possible for us to have a relationship with the Father. He redeemed us, He delivered us, and He restored us. He didn't save us from anything. Because we can still go back and fall into transgression. Another great myth is this once saved, always saved thing. You have a relationship, you fall out of the relationship, well, that's that. You sell yourself back into slavery, you sell yourself back into bondage, and that's just the way it is. So, He opened the door. Now, I'll try not to be so long-winded. We go back to the word hakak, that means to carve into or to engrave. So it's not simply enough to learn. Before we can consider any ideas, we have to look at the word after Bechukotai, that is teleku, meaning you walk. The root of this word is halak, that more than simply to walk means a way of life. So it's not just our walk, but it's our way of life that we have with our Elohim. So here we can formulate what is perhaps the most important concept that we've considered up to this point in our time together. Our way of life must be dedicated to engraving the Torah of Yahweh Elohim into our hearts. Our way of life must be dedicated to engraving the Torah of Yahweh Elohim into our hearts. It's a big mouthful, but it's so very important. Only in doing this can we keep Yahuwah's request in this verse. Keep my commandments and do them. The word for keep in this verse is tishmaru, that literally means you keep, from the root shamar, that means to treasure, to guard, to protect. This, according to this verse, is our duty in life, to treasure, to guard, and to protect the Torah of Yahuwah. But, as the word im, meaning if, is used, it's also our choice as to whether or not we choose to do so. So I'll ask a question that we can all honestly answer to ourselves. When was the last time I recited the commandments to myself and considered them? When was the last time that we recited the 10 Commandments to ourselves and considered what they meant? The other day I was reciting the Ve'ahavta, and I got stuck on the word Ve'ahavta, and you shall love Yahuwah. Ve'ahavta et Yahuwah. And I said, how do I do that? What is it to love Yahuwah? What is that? And it started me to thinking, but this is what I'm talking about. When was the last time we recited the 10 Commandments and actually asked ourselves, what does it really mean to honor mother and father? What does it really mean to keep Shabbat? I made a comment last week that scandalized some people about, if you get your rest mowing the grass, mow the grass. But the point that I'm making is, Yeshua's Talmudim went through the fields, plucking the wheat and doing this. If you find time to rest in your garden, digging the grass around, or digging the dirt around, and it gives you the opportunity to speak with Elohim and connect with Elohim and spend time with Elohim and reflect on the commandments and reflect on His Word, then get in there and move the dirt around. If you hate getting in your garden or mowing your grass, don't do it. Because you're not going to reflect on your relationship with Yahuwah Elohim. Whew, glad I got that off my chest. No, anyway. But we have a choice. This is the question of if. What we're being told in this verse is that we have a choice to engrave the instruction, the statutes, ordinance, and commandments of Yahuwah Elohim into our hearts or not. In this study, I would like to provide a step-by-step process for engraving these into our hearts so we don't suffer the plagues of Egypt or the curses contained in this parsha of Bechukotai or the plagues at the end of Devarim that are not very pleasant either. The first step involves acknowledgement, connection, and recognition. We are sensory beings. We haven't fully developed the ability to connect spiritually without first connecting physically. Because we still have to see something or hear something, and then we have to kind of figure it out before we can say, okay, I'm going to believe it. So we are still sensory beings. So we begin with the zitzit on the talus. Okay? In the following verses, we have to understand that the commandment to attach zitzit is given to only the men. Women are excluded totally, right? No. It's given to the children of Israel. It's given to all of them, male and female, regardless of what the rabbis want to tell you or what the Southern Baptists want to tell you, that a woman should not speak in church because they misunderstood what Paul had to say about the one lady in Corinthians that was causing a problem. So he told the Corinthian church, hey, tell her not to speak. Not the rest of them. Yahuwah Elohim is no respecter of persons, regardless of what religious ideologies have erroneously told us. They've become very male-oriented. They're very chauvinistic. It's a sad thing that I see Messianic bodies going in the direction of the Talmud, where they separate the men and the women. Women have to wear skirts. They have to wear the doodad over their hair. Can't wear talits. But it says here, the children of Israel. Listen, this is Bamidbar 15:38 through 41. Speak unto the children of Israel, and bid them that they make them throughout their generations, means it doesn't stop, tzitzit in the corners of their garments. Literally it says the borders of their garments. Corners is good. And that they put with the tzitzit of each corner a thread of blue. And it shall be unto you for a tzitzit, that you may look upon it and remember all the commandments of Yahweh and do them, and that you go not about your own heart and your own eyes, after which you used to go astray, that you may remember and do all my commandments, and be dedicated to your Elohim. I am Yahweh your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, to be your Elohim. I am Yahweh your Elohim. But it says, they shall be for a tzitzit, that you may look upon it. And that's a very, very important little piece there. The first commandment is given to put the tzitzit on the corner of the garment. The word tzitzit does mean fringe, but it also means a wing. We must keep this in mind when we read the scriptures. There's a lot of times that we read about wings. The root of tzitzit is zutz, that means to gaze, to make the eye sparkle, and to show oneself. So, very important, because we look at the tzitzit, and it's doing something. We are showing ourselves in the presence of Elohim. We are remembering him. We are coming into the presence. Now, these are to be on the borders of the garment. The word for border in this, or corner, is kanfei, that actually means wings. Now, this garment was of two types. There was a particular, kind of like a shirt-type garment. Your head went through it, went down on one side, came down the other side, had four corners, tzitzit. The other garment was a shawl that went over the top, where our modern-day tzitzit come from, that were either rectangular or square. Okay? We picture ideas of, I'm not as good as Eric, but we picture this kind of garment. Where are the corners? The talit has been in existence for thousands of years. It was in existence at Sinai. It was a wrapping that they put on to keep the desert dust out of their faces. Sometimes they put it over their head. They turbanized it and everything. But when they put the tzitzit on it, it became something more. And we have historical records to show how old the idea of the talit or the talit katan is. But the idea of four is a very important idea, that it gives us a mathematical equation. Here we have 4 squared. We have 4 in the square, which gives us an idea of 4 times 4 is 16, which is the ordinal value of the letter ayin, that means to perceive, to pay attention, to look. So the 16th letter of the alphabet is ayin, that means to see or perceive. We are to pay attention to what the tzitzit represents. Yahweh did not design and command us to put on and wear tzitzits and talits because they are pretty. He gave them to us for a reason. We see the word wings often in Torah, and we have to be aware of what it means. Now, the word for garments doesn't mean garments at all. Doesn't mean garments at all. Maybe down a long list of definitions somewhere it means garment. But the word for garments is vigdechem, and this word that we have to be very aware of, considering that we read it in Bereshit 6 and 8, considering the condition of the heart. This word, from its roots beged, means treachery and deceit. It comes from a similar root, bagad, that means to act treacherously, to be deceitful, to be faithless, and to transgress. Why would we put on a garment that means to be treacherous, to be faithless, to transgress? Why would we put this garment on? This is a representation of trying to turn the next page. This is a representation of our carnal form. This is the physical form of us that when we transgressed in the garden, the anointing of Yahweh lifted up and he replaced it with skins because it was something that was going to die. When we lack faith, when we act deceitfully. You know, it's like I said, well, nobody's watching, I can do whatever I want to do. But we have to be aware that Yahweh is always present. But the way our heart operates is nobody's going to see it. We don't even consider that other factor. So, something we have to keep in mind. So consider it again what it is to not look at the tzitzit. When we don't look at the tzitzit, that you go not about after your own heart and your own eyes, after which you used to go astray. We are carried on the wings of the Torah, and we have a means in the tzitzit to perceive beyond our flesh and blood being. So one more thing about the talit and the tzitzit is that it must have the techelet. And this is of absolute critical importance. It stopped because the rabbi said that it had to come from a certain snail. When they discovered sometime around the Maccabees that they had this oral Torah all of a sudden, they started taking things out. And one of the things that they took out was this techelet, the blue thread. They said, we don't have this certain snail. Next to removing the name of Yahweh from their lips, this was the next worst thing that they could have done. And we'll see this in a second. Seh Elohim doesn't care if the techelet comes from Walmart. It's a very important thing. We are to have it in the tzitzit and on the corners of the talit so that we can look at it during prayer. Now, techelet means blue or violet. It literally represents the spectrum from blue through violet that includes indigo and purple. Now I said we are very sensory beings. Blue light has been shown scientifically to enhance our ability to concentrate and communicate. We'll see how important these are in just a second. Blue also enhances our ability to absorb knowledge. Indigo, which includes the purple through the violet spectrum, has been shown scientifically to enhance our perception. Violet is a color that's been shown scientifically to affect the cells in the upper brain. Leonardo da Vinci claimed that the color violet enhanced his ability to concentrate. Yes, I read the book, How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci, when I was on the cruise. Something else that blue does, the blue spectrum, is that it has a healing and restorative property. It can literally restore necrotic cells the same way that vitamin C works. So when we have Yahshua extending the blue techelet to the little girl, and he says, little girl, rise to my talit, he's acknowledging that there is healing in the Torah of Yahweh Elohim. And she comes to life. So, very important, this idea of the techelet. The importance of the techelet cannot be stressed enough, and the commandment to look upon it was given thousands of years before science confirmed the usefulness of this spectrum of colors. The Proto-Hebrew of this word is, excuse me, maybe I should drink some water. It's kal. So, it's kal. That